Guys, I'm really sorry. We had a technical issue. I thought I was live 15 minutes ago. Literally, the application went live and then it cut me off. And I didn't realize that it had switched off. So this is a technical gap. And I'm really sorry. I've been talking to nobody for the last 10 minutes. I only started seeing that you guys are not seeing anything because I saw the chat come up. So hi, Lucas. Hi, Michael. Hi, David. Hi, everybody who's still here. It's so weird. I'm really sorry for the technical issue that did not push us live as it was supposed to. But here we are. Thank you for whoever stayed on the stream. We are live now. And over the next, let's say, 45 minutes or so, I am Rohan Glotra. I'm going to walk you through some of the coolest innovation that we've seen in sports broadcasting. It is a topic that we have been very close to for the last, let's say, 6 weeks or so. We've been actively tracking the space and speaking with a lot of leaders around innovation in sports broadcasting, a bunch of startups, scale-ups as well, the likes of Hawkeye, the likes of Star Sports, and presenting what they're thinking. I also got to visit the Olympics. I was there for a couple of days, and and I got to visit the IBC, the International Broadcasting Center, so I can present some of my key takeaways from there. And then we'll of course start with the data, which is what we track actively on an ongoing basis. Like, what is the funding numbers? What does the investment landscape look like? Right. So let's dive right into it. I'm really, really sorry for the technical issue. It's such a weird thing that we still have these, but I think that was more my mistake, or between me and the application. I'll investigate it later. But anyway, let's get right into it. Starting with the funding numbers, right? We're looking at a sports tech market that has gone a bit cool, let's say, or at least in the first part of 2024. We looked at funding numbers which weren't so great. 2023 wasn't a great year for investment in sports tech, but that is changing. July alone almost totaled the whole year, preceding year, the first 6 months of the year. There was about $1 billion or so in investment in sports tech. July alone almost crossed it. It was about 850, 900 million. And August has been a really strong follow-up. So we're seeing an uptick in the funding numbers. I will present more information around that in upcoming reports and content. For now, I wanted to present actually over the last 5 years, what has been the trend in media and production, right? So over the last 5 years, we've seen about $30 billion, 32 to be exact, $32 billion worth of investment in the last 5 years. About 13% of that happened in in management and organization, which is the B2B sector. Within management and organization, you can look to the chart on the right. It's about a 50-50 split between orgs and venues and stuff, and then what is media and sponsors. Yeah, so media sponsors accounts for 55%. So 4 billion out of the 32 billion goes into this whole pie, and 55%, so let's say a little under 2.5 billion, has gone into media production and sponsorship, so commercial operations for sports entities, right? Hi, Arpan. Glad to have you here. Thanks for whoever is here and has joined this stream. Please drop a comment. Tell me where you're coming in from and ask any questions. I will pick up as many of those as I can over the course of this webinar. Right. What has been the 5-year trend in media production from an investment perspective? Now, this looks like it's trending down. I actually wanted to show the percentage numbers below each bar, but we couldn't do that. What's essentially happening is that the overall total number that is invested in media production is decreasing, but the share of media production versus the total investment in sports tech, that is increasing. For perspective, 2021, there was about $12 billion invested in sports tech, and about 850 million was in media production. So say 7.5, about 7% or so. In 2022, the figure was $8 billion and 500 million invested in sports tech. In 2023, that figure was up to, so that was about, again, 6-7%. In 2023, that figure's beyond 10%. About $2 billion was invested in sports tech, and 220 million went into media production, which is an interesting trend to see. So even though the overall investment pie is coming down. The percentage invested in sports in media production was going up. I can see lots of interesting chat. Greetings from Madrid, greetings from the US, greetings from Sheffield. Hi, Fabio. Hi, Denny. Hi, Damien. As always, a pleasure to have you, David. Thank you guys for being patient. Sorry for the screw up at the start. We're going to motor through the next 40 minutes or so to try to bring you everything that we've planned, right? So, where has this investment been going? Top 5 countries and top 5 cities. So, we've had majority of this investment always goes to the US, the biggest markets, US, UK. But Israel is the country which is known most famously for its media related tech, especially around computer vision based automated production. So, AI and computer vision to identify objects, and then based on that data, clip and broadcast either live or post the event. Cheers, greetings to Michael from Zurich as well. Good to have all of you. Is no Swiss countries, not Switzerland, not Germany, not Italy on this list, but a couple of European states, UK and Denmark, which is home to Veo Technologies, of course, the camera which is tracking everything that's happening on field. So that's on performance analytics plus media production. We kind of count in both areas. From the cities, the main hubs, London and New York, right on top. The Israeli cities, which are basically you can combine into Tel Aviv. These are kind of suburbs around the Tel Aviv area. I'm not Israeli. I've been there only once, so pardon me if you prefer not to call it Tel Aviv. And these are separate cities geographically. That's how we count it, which is why we've separated the two. But let's say it's the greater Tel Aviv area, and Copenhagen, which is all for one company. But that was the trend for the last 5 years. And you can see which of the companies that this investment has gone into over the last 5 years, 2019 to 23, and also in 2023, FC Sports, Velocimedia Group, Videoverse, an Indian entity, Striker. So that kind of 40, 50, 60, 70 million, a few companies raised that kind of ticket over the period, though. A couple of gaming companies at the top, Pixelot, WSC, I already mentioned, and Genvid Tech. Kind of this automated media production side of things has been quite attractive. We especially saw this super hot in 2022, coming out towards the end of 2022, leading into 2023. There were quite a few companies that raised significant rounds of funding. I'm talking about 80, 100 million plus rounds happened over that period. In 2024, though, I mentioned at the start, the overall investment trend is pretty, let's say, cool. I wouldn't say it's cold. I would say it's cool. It has been in the first 6 months of the year, Jan to June. There wasn't much action in sports tech, but July and August, it's really picking up. Again, we're going to bring you this data in our upcoming report, but I can tell you that July, I mentioned at the start, I'll say it again for anybody who missed it. July almost surpassed the entire first 6 months of the year by itself in terms of investment. The first 6 months of the year totaled a little over $1 billion. July was a little under 900 million alone. And August, we've seen this continues. There's been quite a few big funding rounds in August already. These are some of the companies that kind of connected to media production or media broadcasting. COSM, you could argue, is not media. It's a facility. So it's an immersive experience. But again, they're innovating in how you deliver. I mean, the size of the screen, it's a different format, which is why we consider it in this category. I think is relevant to CAM, AI, or TextQL, or all little layers or services that can be built onto existing broadcast. Some other companies that are worth highlighting, which have all either raised funding rounds or done some interesting stuff in 2024. Snappers, which is a video production company, they help with basically crowdsourcing video content. So if I am let's say, media distribution channel, and there's something happening so say I'm in Berlin, and there's something happening in Madrid or Zurich or anywhere else that you guys are joining from, through Snappers, I can go and find correspondents, and I can go live on from that city. Just the The correspondent will be dialed into my SDK. They'll have the application sitting somewhere with them, and they can link into my software, and I can broadcast on my channel. Pendula does automated video resizing, especially for vertical video. A bunch of drone companies, Fleetcopter one. Sailing, I think, is an interesting space to talk about. I don't know if you saw. I saw this news just today that there was a partnership between Capgemini and Sail GP, where in the broadcast they're showing, basically they were trying to show things that are invisible. The wind, which is a hugely important factor in sailing, of course, right? For any, say, America's Cup fans. So America's Cup had a partnership with Capgemini, where through some lidar sensors that they place around the route, around the course where the sailors are competing, they're able to show layers. I couldn't get this. I saw this literally just 5 minutes before the broadcast, so I'll maybe drop a link or something to where you can check it out. But yeah, some really interesting stuff. Just remind me at the end. I'll drop the link in the chat where you can check it out. It was some really interesting way of how broadcasting can lead from a tech perspective, because that data is not even available to the teams. The teams would be really interested in that data, and this is being built for broadcast first, so that fans can get a sense of, hey, how the wind is moving, what is the optimal route to complete this course, what the captains on the boats, on the yachts, are kind of going by feel to understand. The broadcaster can show you before the captain. It's really interesting. And they were in that little piece, they were talking about how this data might be valuable to the teams, but right now it's being built for broadcast. So kind of how broadcast is leading the tech revolution from a data perspective, because they want to give a good experience to the audience that is watching. Camb AI is a company that's gaining a lot of momentum and traction recently because they do automated translation. So imagine that you could be watching this webinar with me speaking it in, choose a language, say Portuguese or China or Mandarin, but me speaking that language in my voice, right? So it's using my intonation, my flexion of voice, my, yeah, everything. It is literally, it sounds like me in that language. That is something that CamBAM has made possible and has been doing this for quite a few elite competitions, the IPL included. They had a really couple of nice use cases where they had an Australian cricket captain, former captain Steve Smith, explaining explaining technical facets of the game in Hindi, just as his voice being dubbed and cloned. Really interesting piece of tech there. Sponix, some of you might be familiar with already. They do that immersive broadcast. Mix Zone is digital backdrops. So, you know, those typical interview backdrops that post-match interviews in any sport that athletes have. Mix Zone allows you to make that digital. So, like real nuanced solutions which can work really well in different places. Coming into the trends, what are the big trends that we see from a media broadcasting perspective? Yeah, I think we're back on track a bit now. In the next half an hour or so, I'm going to cover the trends, and I'm going to cover some key takeaways that from my visit to the Olympics and my experience at the International Broadcasting Center, the IBC. Spoda says hi from Bangalore. Hi, guys. Anybody else who is watching, wherever you are, drop me a hello. Tell me where you are. And especially if you have questions, we want to keep this as interactive as possible. All right. I think the biggest trend which is driving innovation in broadcasting is something that we talk about a lot in our content, is how much live sports is happening on big tech companies, which wasn't the case before. The likes of Amazon, the likes of Apple, Google, Meta, investing in live sports rights. This slide is already needs to be updated. I think there are a few more logos that you can associate with each. But Apple investing in such a long-term deal to pick up the MLS, Amazon, which carries the NFL, the Premier League, the Champions League, the Liga, WNBA, and now, of course, they've got a part of the NBA ticket as well, in a pretty historic deal. Google carries the NFL on YouTube. Meta has been investing in VR-based sports broadcasting for a while now. It's a big part of their Oculus offering. And Netflix as well has acquired a live sports ticket. They will show, I believe it's the Thanksgiving games or it's the Christmas games for over through the NFL this season. So if you know, then just let me know in the chat. This was not happening 2, 3, 5 years ago. Certainly, even 2 years ago, there was so much talk has been for a while about Netflix getting into live sports, MLS, Amazon. They were all bidding, experimenting, and now they are in. These big tech companies are coming into live sports. Why? I mean, at the end of the day, they want to acquire users, right? They want to sell iPhones and Amazon Prime subscriptions or Netflix subscriptions to everybody else, and they see sports as the way to do that. But by entering this space, they bring a lot of technical know-how, right? They bring a lot of access to, they bring a lot of compute power, they bring a lot of analytics power. They also bring a lot of data that they know about user behavior, especially somebody like Netflix, for example. They know it would be really interesting to see how they would recommend edits or changes to sports broadcasting, how information is given, what viewing times are, what viewing demographics are, things like this. It would be interesting to see how they impact the final product that we see on our screens. But the fact that they're here makes is a huge shift in the industry. That's number one. Number two, the endemic, the legacy providers, the linear broadcasters, the likes of NBC and TNT, again, TNT and or Warner Brother Discovery, who famously are battling with the NBA, will go through some legal hurdles to try to get that ticket and will likely not succeed. I don't see that ticket coming back to TNT, the NBA ticket. What are they going to do, right? They're going to have to keep investing to make sure that they stay ahead of the curve when it compares to the big tech companies. And number three, the direct to consumer offering that a lot of the sports right holders are experimenting with themselves, right? La Liga has gone DTC in different parts of Asia. I believe it was Philippines and Vietnam or something. I'm not sure. This happened a couple of years ago. The NBA, of course, has League Pass, has had it for a while. The NFL has been playing with its all, direct consumer offering. Everybody's experimenting in house. I can tell you that the Premier League is talking about it. Bundesliga has been experimenting with it. Everybody's trying to be aware of how they can grow their own direct to consumer offering themselves. So when you've got big tech companies, the linear broadcasters, the legacy companies, and direct to consumer offerings all kind of competing for how the end user consumes sports, there is inevitably going to be a lot of innovation in this space because everybody's fighting for that their size, their share of that dollar. Right? It's a really interesting time. Spoda AI asks, how is the sports analytics industry doing? Interesting question, Spoda. I don't know how to answer that. I think we're going to focus on media broadcasting. I don't know if you're asking in connection to media and broadcast. Otherwise, it sounds like it's a performance analytics related question, which maybe I can cover at the end if we have some time. But I'll skip that one for now, unless maybe you can clarify what you mean by that question. All right. So the first trend is big tech buying into sports, right? Next one is just personalized interactive broadcast. You're seeing this so much. The ability for a viewer to view their broadcast in their way, or how they want to, either by the broadcast itself tailored to a particular audience. So you don't just get the generic broadcast. What you get is a tailored experience, like what the NFL did with Nickelodeon, which is a kids focused broadcast. Now, I would not watch the NFL with slime and little animations around the players, or like little puffs of smoke when somebody's running really fast, things like that. I would not, recommend to watch myself. But what I would say, let me just try to get rid of that caption to see what. I'm going to show this one. There we go. Right. I would not recommend watching it in that way myself. But hey, if you're a kid who's trying to get into sports, maybe this is for you. We've also had betting focused broadcasts, so you can watch the broadcast with live betting odds baked into the stream. So it's not like, and even the commentary is betting focused. The commentators are only talking about sports betting. They're talking about odds throughout the time that the sports is going on. So it's not just hit the red button and place your bet. It is actually you're being constantly fed. So if you're a betting fan, you can watch a broadcast that is tailored for you. There is more data being presented on stream for that type of viewer, for the highly analytical fan. And then, of course, the actual viewing experience itself, how you can become your own director. If you've watched the um, Apple Vision Pro launch, if you've actually seen the NBA app in Apple Vision Pro, or even the ICC app in Apple Vision Pro, you get this hugely tiled view that you can move around. You have all the views around you. You can decide what goes into the main view versus what stays on the side. You can add whatever analytics that you want to show. And we were having this conversation just last week with another group of investors about, I think there is some value in what in allowing the user to decide how they want to view their sport. But at the same time, there is also a professional director sitting in that seat who is giving you the what he or she, sorry, believes is the optimal sports broadcast. There is something to both, right? It's for the passive fan. You might not want to be so immersed. You want to just sit back, have a drink, have some food, and just watch your sports. Or you're a highly engaged fan where you're more active and you want to participate in it. Second screen, you want to be chatting, you want to do all of that, right? So I think all offerings are relevant in today's sports broadcasting market, and I think that the broadcasters who are able to cater to a really wide audience will be the ones that can command that premium on their ticket. Interesting times indeed. Spoda, you came back with how's the sports analytics industry doing? Media broadcasting. I actually covered it. Maybe you joined late. I don't know. I actually covered it from a numbers perspective right at the start of my session. Maybe you can rewatch it. I broke down the funding numbers over the last 5 years, and also what is specifically going into investment into media broadcasting. And now, of course, I'm covering the trends. So I'm actually answering your question live. Hi, David. Good to hear from you. And Arif, what are your thoughts on Infinite Athlete is doing? Interesting question. I'll come to that one a little later. Let me finish with the trends. But I think there are some interesting use cases. I know some companies that they're working with in terms of sharing data, especially with Chelsea and with others. All right. What else? Mixed reality. We can't not talk about this. The use of AR or VR into existing broadcasts. And this is not just for the end fan, it's also in how the broadcast is produced, right? So that the commentators using AR during the breaks between breaks in sports, or at the halftime show or at the end of a quarter, how they are using AR. The Tour de France has a really great example. I decided not to play videos today because it never plays correctly on a stream, and it just hasn't worked well. But try to find it. There is some really cool AR stuff that the Tour de France did recently for this edition, where the commentators in the studio could use AR to move bike riders and change positions and really use that screen, but not just a flat screen, actually make it come alive in 3D and move riders around and show what teams were doing from a strategy perspective. Some really cool stuff. So you're seeing a lot of AR being used not just at the end user level, where I want to use my phone to project something on a table or on a screen while I'm in stadium or at home, and there have mixed reality experiences, but also in studio where the broadcasters are using themselves. The Tour de France did some really cool stuff. I think everybody is doing something around VR. The Star Sports actually had some really cool stuff around the IPL, where they were using AR in studio about how the in studio guys were interacting with brands. There's a picture over here. I think my face covers it a bit, about what a Maruti or a Suzuki car that was presented, and the commentators were interacting with it, which the viewers can see. So interesting ways about how you can enhance that experience through mixed reality. So you can still be watching it on TV, and there is still AR experiences that you are taking in, or you can be actively engaged in AR, or VR. Or VR is a completely different thing, where you put on a headset and you're in a completely immersed world. So there are different levels, I think, through which mixed reality broadcast is coming to audiences. All right, that is the biggest trend. So, what do we cover? We covered big tech in sports, we covered personalized and interactive broadcast, and we covered immersive mixed reality experiences and the different levels that those three can happen in. Now, I want to come to the Olympics. Shout out anybody who was there, anybody who experienced the Olympics in Paris themselves. Drop a line in the chat. Tell me how it was for you. Did you enjoy it? Were you a bit iffy? Did you have some mixed experiences? Or even for those who just watched it on TV, or on your screen, whichever screen of choice, tell me about your experiences. How did you feel these Olympics compared to previous editions? Did you enjoy them more or less? I From a screen perspective, I definitely enjoyed them more. On ground, there were some challenges. I think logistically, for people to get around, I think there were various issues. But from a broadcasting perspective, I think this was a really, really successful Olympics. Um, Right. So I was invited to a couple of things. Right. The Paris Innovation and Tech team had a little presentation that they did where they showcased their cool projects. So what did they do exactly? Their biggest one, arguably, was their digital twin partnership with One Plan, where they had a digital version of the Olympic venue. Why this was important? This was not from a fan's perspective. This was actually from a planning, strategizing perspective. So they could see layouts, they could see how to set up their organizers, where media will go, where entries and exits are, where food should be, what the views are in each stadium. So you can present that option to the final purchaser when they're buying tickets. So things like that. So this digital venue solution is now becoming a default, right? I think the Olympics announced this partnership a couple of years ago, and One Plan, a UK-based company, was their partner to roll it out. But this is becoming the standard. I know One Plan is doing this for a lot of companies. 3D Digital is a Spanish company that's also doing it for a lot of venues. I've had One Plan on my podcast. I've had 3D Digital on my podcast. So if you're interested in this digital twin topic, I would highly recommend you go check out those episodes. What else did the innovation team do? They actually had a bunch of 3D printed solutions, including this little thing that they put in the toilets for in all their facilities, for to allow disabled people, not just athletes, but anybody who's disabled, to use the facilities, use the toilets in any of their facilities. And it was a simple, like in the village, in the broadcast center, in the media centers, etc. And it was a very simple contraption that they 3D printed, that they used. I was just thought it was an interesting innovation use case. Not everything has to be digital. They talked about that. They talked about their vision pad that they rolled out for disabled athletes and fans, which was interesting. And they had this connected virtual marathon. So Marathon Portu, yeah, excuse me if my French pronunciation is not great, but basically they had the live marathon that was happening, but you could take part in a connected virtual marathon. So you could be running on the same route or alongside your athlete. Either at a later date you could go back to Paris, or wherever you are, it could kind of create a similar route for you. It was really interesting, connected marathon use case. Did anybody try it? If you did, let me know. I didn't try it myself, but I thought it would be cool. I think they also had it not just for the full marathon, but also had it for the 10K run, which was the special run that they had, right? What else? Yeah, in the actual IBC, and they had this innovation showcase center where they were talking about um, all the different cool projects that were launched at the Olympics. So Intel spoke a lot about their 8K and how they were broadcasting in 8K. Now, the natural question is, who's watching in 8K? Does anybody have an 8K TV in their home? Not yet. I would guess that most of you don't. If any of you do, I don't know if anybody does. Let me know if you got to experience the Olympics in 8K. But they're doing it, and they're doing it now already. And this will probably become the norm over a period of time, but it's not right now. Yet Intel has spent a lot of money to broadcast the Olympics in 8K, and especially the data storage and the data transfer. But the bandwidth this requires is pretty significant. So it wasn't by default, it wasn't at all venues, because it also requires special cameras, right? It wasn't everywhere, but it was a pretty significant effort. The other thing that I messed around with, which was also in partnership with Intel, they had partnered with this US-based company called Evercoast to create like this little mini studio. Again, I actually tried this out. I wish I could show you, but like I mentioned earlier, I try to stay away from playing videos when I'm doing webinars. But you could create a digital 3D avatar of yourself. So it's like, exactly how the movies do it, where they put markers and they create a digital version of you, or life-size digital rendering of you. I did that in 1 minute, in this little setup that they had. I think they had about 16 cameras in this small room, and it would spin around so you could get like a full 360-degree view of yourself, and you record it yourself doing something in like 60 seconds, and then you can place that digital version as an AR replica and put that in any sort of environment. So I did that at the hockey stadium, and I created some videos. It was a lot of fun. But this is a nice partnership that the Olympics had with Evercoast. Um, and also the Alibaba and Omega booths were the most interesting. Alibaba from a cloud hosting perspective and how they were optimizing for storage, and Omega actually, which was a surprise. Omega, the watch company, I believe, they were the ones who were really driving the computer vision and AI around the Olympics. So yeah, creating automated highlights, biomechanical tracking, athlete recognition, object recognition, all that stuff. These are some images. Ravi, the gentleman in the center, is the one I spent the most amount of time with. He really walked me through what Intel is doing from a broadcast perspective, especially on this 8K stuff. Very interesting guy to speak with. This was some of the AR stuff that the Olympics had at their event. So they have these images that you could basically point at, and then put your camera on and then engage with that image, so it comes to life when it's scanned, and then it's showing you data points. And they had these around the city, I believe. I didn't see one in the city, but I saw one at the innovation center, and that was really cool. So you basically you point your phone at the still, and it's showing you some data, it's showing you some images on your phone about what's happening on that image. That was pretty cool. This was connected to Snapchat, and also to Snapchat, they had a bunch of filters. And this, I believe, was very popular. I think there was hundreds of millions of views. So people just, putting a filter of themselves. We messed around with this at home itself. I had some friends over to watch the Olympics. One day, I don't even know what we were watching. I think we watched, just a bunch of stuff. And they actually had some live interaction. So you could cheer for your team. And my friends were Dutch. So them cheering for the Dutch team using the Snapchat filters could bring them on screen, I think in the stadium or something, or they could win some points. I forget the exact use case, but it was popular, and I wasn't even telling them to do anything. They just got on it themselves, and they were just creating these filters and creating these moments and sending them over, that the Dutch Olympic team could potentially use. So that was quite cool to see. What else we had? This I thought was some of the most interesting tech. It looks pretty straightforward, but it's really not. The image cropping of an athlete. This was especially relevant for gymnastics. You also saw this in other sports, in badminton, in archery, and things like that. So you can see the athlete object movement But when this is played in video, right now this is an image, so it looks like a still, it looks like a composite image. But when this is played, essentially only the athlete is frozen and you can see the composite image. Everything else in the background is moving. So it's still a live shot, or let's say it's a replay, it's a live replay. So the background is moving, but the athletes are freeze framed in these moments. And there was the way it was explained was actually really cool. The imaging tech that was used to do this. This was by Omega, and also how they did it for the gymnastics to capture Simone Biles and stuff. Some really innovative, interesting tech there, which I think we can see a lot more in other sports. Yeah, Alibaba, like I said, had some cloud-based stuff that was going on. This is a shot of their virtual boxing program. Some of these, I wouldn't say that all these images are mine. Some of them I took from the default that was shared. But yeah, also this is an example of how Omega was doing data tracking during the shooting events. What else do we have? Yeah, a fun fact: there was 11,000 hours of footage across the Olympics. Only 4,000 of those are live sports. This was something that was shared with us while I was on the tour, on the innovation tour. I just found it interesting. What they do is essentially they put up a lot of still cameras to just get mood. And because all those panning shots that you get from the broadcast of live from Paris, and they just show the Eiffel Tower or they show the Arc de Triomphe or Notre Dame or whatever, those live cameras are set up and they're just there for the entire month, right? And so you just to get a flavor in various fan zones in various locations. Some moving, some are fixed, for time lapses, for all sorts of stuff. So majority of the footage that is captured is not actually related to sports. And I was also explained a lot in detail on how what happens centrally and what can happen locally, because each broadcasting team from the various countries obviously wants to focus on their sports and they want to add their language. And there is the central broadcast, which is from the IBC, done by the OBS, the Olympic Broadcasting Studio. And what they push out versus the layer that happens either locally on site at the various sports centers, or locally in the respective locations. So take, for example, the hockey game that I've watched, which was where India won a bronze medal. That was really cool to be there for. So obviously there is the default feed that the OBS is putting out with its international commentary, with its English commentary. They don't do any non-English commentary officially out of the OBS themselves. All the non-English commentary happens based on the partner nation, the respective Olympic committee sending across through their broadcasting partners. So that might be happening on site, or that might be happening in that country itself. But on site, there is always something. Like I met the Indian reporters that were there. We had a bit of a chat, and they were doing the athlete interviews, and they were actually doing some commentary on site. And then there is the third layer, which is happening locally in studio, right? So just to understand what happens where, how much access does the team back home get to the team on site, and how that data is transferred and stored and shared. It was all really interesting to get a little background of all the technical stuff that goes on behind the Olympics. What else? I'm going to wrap this up in the next couple of minutes and throw it open to questions. For more context, like we've had a bunch of really interesting people on our pod over the last 6 weeks or so. Tiled Media is a Dutch company. I had Rob on there, who's one of the founders. Amos is for video sites, which started in kind of anti-piracy for video, but has gone into a bigger solution, talking about how like video tracking and how they can recognize objects on video and therefore build intelligence and data layers on it. Hawkeye, of course, everybody knows. Lawrence heads up there. I think they call it field sports, or I'm not sure, I'm getting the term wrong, but he heads up essentially cricket, and I think a couple of other sports, but cricket is a big part of what happens at Hawkeye, and Lawrence is the guy who heads that up. Um, uh, VizRT, Andrew, he came and talked about what how they kind of help manage the media products for various other solution providers. Pendula, I mentioned earlier, they do vertical video, and we had an analytics company, 1080 Motion, in how data is captured. Yeah, that is a wrap for this session. I'm going to throw it over to questions. If you guys want to know more, obviously reach out. Sorry once again for the late start. If there is anything in particular that you want to talk about, we can get into some questions here. These are the Olympic takeaways, the trends, and also the data that I presented right at the start. Um, yeah, so drop your questions over here. Arif, you were asking about Infinite Athlete AI. Any particular angle you're asking from? I mean, Infinite Athlete, from what I can see, I'm just going to pull up their website. Um, they, of course, have a big partnership with Chelsea. They're the shirt sponsor for them, and they essentially they're trying to, and their claim is that they're trying to build the operating system for sports, right? But around the athlete, trying to provide a bunch of insights. So gathering data from different sources, and then sharing that back with the athlete, sharing that data back with broadcasters, and yeah, it's I'm yet to see what the final solution is. I know what um, they've spent a lot of time working with partners. Yeah, I don't know if I haven't seen their name in the last 6 months. I think you're right, but I think what they're building is a lot of partner-based tech. So they're trying to do data visualization. So they have a bunch of partners through wearables and stuff that they gather a lot of data, and then they do help build visualizations for teams. They also have partners that they work with to do computer vision stuff. I can't take names, but I know who they work with to do data tracking. So apart from the sensors, through computer vision, and all of this is going into some sort of dashboard that the athlete and the team, the coaching team, the staff, management team can use. Yeah, it'll be curious to see what they come up with. Um, Harvey Augusto Escobar Sanchez has dropped a message in Spanish. My Spanish is not great, es emocionante ver cómo avanza la tecnología en el deporte y especialmente las transmisiones deportivas de todo mi interés. So, yeah, Harvey, thanks for showing your interest. It's great to see that you are interested in the development of sports technology and especially sports broadcasting. I think that was just the takeaway from that message. Hope I got that right. Yeah, any other questions? Drop them here. We're going to stay online for another couple of minutes. But otherwise, yeah, this has been the first. I think I'm going to do this as a monthly series. So, guys, stay tuned. We'll do a better job with, you know, putting it out in advance. But I wanted to kick it off because there was so much content that I saw over the last 6 weeks. I just had to package it and bring it out to you. But next time around, we're going to do this at least once a month to do live webinars, get the interaction going with you guys. Everybody who's interested, drop us in the chat or in the comments. Drop us an email if you want, and tell us about any specific topics that you would like covered. That's number one. Number two, I can also talk about our Sports Tech Academy or Sports Tech Boot Camp. It's a new product that we're launching where we want to do more deep dives into specific topics. So to get people up to date with the latest in sports tech, it's a paid kind of a 6 to 8 week program where we walk you through what's happening in sports tech one on one. So consider these webinars as a bit of a teaser, and we can go into things in more detail in this bootcamp. So if you're interested in that, we're running a survey right now, where you can participate, win some stuff, get some free access. But for now, we're just gathering feedback on how we should structure it. That is one, and of course, keep track of all our content that is coming up over the next few weeks or so. Next up, I'm going to bring you on the pod. I was just in Riyadh last week, over the weekend at the Esports World Cup. So we're going to bring you a bunch of content from there. I got to speak to a bunch of people there and to see the crossover between esports and sports. And so that's coming up. We have a series around sustainability in sport coming up. And then we have a series on fan experience and the evolution of fan experience. So this is on the broadcasting side. And then we look at it from the consumer perspective. around fan experience. Or if one last question, and that'll be the last one I take, any insights into the activities of investors in this category? Like I said, I think we saw a lot of effort, a lot of activity coming out of 2022 into 2023. This 23 and most of 24 has been a bit cold, but this sector has been one of the, it's like I said, that this percentage of total investment has been increasing. So this sector is quite attractive to investors, to tech companies. So if you're a startup in the media broadcasting space, I would suggest you get in touch with some people, I think, or get in touch with investors. I think across the board there is genuine interest in what is happening around media broadcasting. Okay, Spoda, I missed your first previous question, so I'll take yours. Is there a change in viewing pattern of the audiences? Not the right guy to ask. I read a bunch of content around how this is changing, about how short form content is becoming more popular, but I still think there is a place for long form content. You see how this changes with age, with the demographics, right? So who's watching big sports on a big screen versus on a small screen? Who's consuming it in longer form versus in shorter form? I think the one thing I'll say on this is that there seems to be this perception that only short form content is going to survive in the future because the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that's how they like to consume content. I disagree with that view. I think that this has always been the case. When you're younger, you want things differently. As you get older, you want things, you like different things, whether it's music, film, content you consume, etc. So the tastes when you were 18 are not the same as your taste when you're 38, right? So this idea that short form content and 60-second, 90-second clips is the only way that sports is going to be consumed, I disagree with that idea. I think that evolution will continue as you get older. I think there will always be a place, as we've seen with 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour podcasts that Joe Rogan hosts. He's the biggest podcaster in the world, and he often does a 2-3 hour episode, right? I mean, there is still a significant appetite for long form. It's just about who's consuming what. I think that's the place to leave it there. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Drop us a chat, drop us a like, drop us any sort of support that you can give us would be much, much appreciated. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. Yeah, so that you keep up to date on